Day number 13 for Karen Reed's case trial is now over. It was only a half day today, and we will be picking it up tomorrow on Friday, and tomorrow is going to be a full day of trial. So that will take us into the weekend, and then we will get ready for the next week of evidence and testimony coming in the Karen Reed trial. So before I jump into what occurred today and give you the recap and give you my thoughts on the testimony that came out today and some of the questions like I always have, before we jump into that, I want to discuss something else in general about the Karen Reed trial. And this is something that I've discussed in my earlier videos that I did on Karen Reed, and that was the following. We have to understand that this is a very divisive trial, right? There's many people on both sides. There's some people that feel 100% certainty that Karen Reed is being framed, and they think that she's as innocent as the fallen snow that night, and there's absolutely, this is all just one big cover-up conspiracy, all designed by the Alberts and their friends and their families. Okay, now that's what some people feel. Some people feel just the opposite. Some people feel that this is all crazy talk about this conspiracy. This is really clear as day. Karen Reed was the one who murdered John O'Keefe, and there's nothing to talk about. And it's very, very divisive. And what I warned everybody who's tuning into my channel is that we don't take sides in this channel. If you're looking for one type of coverage that is completely bent one side, then you're not going to find that here. What we here are objective. And as a trial lawyer, I believe that it's the only honest way to be when you're looking at a trial is that you can't make determinations until all of the evidence has been presented. All of the evidence means not just what we've seen in the news, not what some reporters are reporting or some other channels are reporting. It's the actual evidence and testimony that comes out in trial, and you have to see all of it. The same way the jury is not supposed to make a determination on the trial until they hear and see everything. That is my approach also. So I'm not going to start giving you my opinions. I've never given an opinion on this case one way or the other. All I do here is point out weaknesses. I point out strengths. I point out stylistically if that was a good cross-examination, if there could have been maybe some better cross-examination. I just give you my thoughts and my feelings from my experience. So if that's what you're looking for, you've come to the right place. If you just want to hear one side of the story and hear everything through those lenses, well, then that's not what we do here. And therefore, some people are only willing to hear certain facts and evidence that comes out if it confirms what they believe happened in this case. So let me give you a example of what happened yesterday in day 12, which a lot of people are jumping on, and I didn't even make a mention of it because I didn't think it was so significant. So during yesterday's testimony, when we had Allison McCabe on the stand, and she was talking about the harassment that she and Colin Albert have experienced because of this case. So she said the following quote: "He was not at the house when John was there." That is the exact quote. He was not at the house when John was there, and therefore it's not fair for him to get harassed. That's essentially what she was saying. So some people are jumping on the fact that, oh, she just admitted that John was at the house. Case closed. It's proof that everyone's lying and John was at the house. Okay, now Alan Jackson and Yannetti, none of the defense attorneys made any sort of deal about this in cross-examination. And some people may be feeling, oh my gosh, they completely were falling asleep at the table. They just got an admission. Why don't you jump up and say, you just testified that John was at that house? And why don't they jump up and make a big point about that? You can't wait at this point for closing arguments, which is going to happen in another 6 weeks, and tell the jury, do you remember that Freudian slip that Allison McCabe made on the stand? You can't do that. You've got to make a big point about that right now. So it must be that Alan Jackson and Yannetti were just completely asleep at the table. And also Brother Counsel, who didn't even mention this in my last video. And the answer to this is that no one was asleep at the table. It's just that it doesn't really, there's no smoking gun here. Everybody agrees that John O'Keefe was at that house at some point. Now, whether he went in the house is another question. But he was parked in front of the house. He was lying dead in front of the house. So he was definitely at that house at some point. Just because a witness says that this person left before John was there doesn't mean that John was actually in the house, right? Okay, so I want you to just calm down about that specific reference that Allie McCabe made. And that's why I think Alan Jackson didn't make a big deal about it. Yannetti didn't make a big deal about it. And also, of course, Brother Counsel didn't make a big deal of it because I didn't think there's anything really there that was such a smoking gun to even discuss. So let's move on to day 13. So day 13, we have it opened up with oral argument. So this was before even continuing with the testimony of Colin Albert. And you'll remember that Colin Albert was on the stand before they broke for the day yesterday. And now he's back on the stand, and there's going to be cross-examination. Now, part of the problem here, the reason why on Allison McCabe, this information, this evidence about them being harassed came out was because Yannetti brought up the fact that she didn't share this text message with anybody until August in 2023. And the judge made a ruling, well, once you brought that out, now it opens the door for the prosecution to ask, well, why exactly did you decide to bring that text message out in August 2023? Did anything happen? Oh, you were harassed? Oh, talk about the harassment. So the judge felt that since Yannetti opened up the door, so now the prosecution can talk about the harassment. And obviously you don't want the harassment. If you're the defense attorney, you don't want Allie McCabe crying on the stand. And like I said in yesterday's video, I thought that she was very credible. I thought she came across authentic. And she wasn't combative with the defense attorney. She was giving them the acknowledgments and admitting to certain things. And I thought that she did a good job on the stand. So when you have a credible witness who's crying about harassment and it seems authentic, it's going to hurt your case. So obviously this is a problem for the defense attorney. So Yannetti got up and he made an oral argument with the judge saying that was an incorrect ruling, that she allowed the prosecution to bring up the harassment part because he doesn't feel that really he opened the door enough for that harassment information to come in. And I will say that this is really a judgment call. It's a call on the fly that the judge has to make. There's this happened in the Murdoch case. This happened in a lot of these cases where some information is not allowed to come in, but if one side asked for that information not to come in and they open the door, then the judge can allow some leeway for the prosecution to bring in this evidence or this information that you don't want. So she felt very strongly, and this is what her ruling was, she felt very strongly that no, you opened the door, August 20, that she didn't show her text message to anybody beforehand, and therefore the prosecution, it was fair game for the prosecution to talk about the harassment. But he did make a record, so now his objection is noted, and it's in the record if they want to appeal that specific issue. So now let's get on to the cross-examination of Colin Albert. And I think here Alan Jackson did a great job. I think he did a very good job showing that Colin Albert was not forthcoming. Anytime you have a witness saying that he only wants to talk about certain facts he remembers, but everything else he doesn't remember, it's always not going to look so great. And that's exactly what he did. First, he spoke about the conversations that Colin Albert had with Mr. Lally, the prosecutor. What type of preparation did he go through to prepare for today's testimony for the cross-examination and things like that. And he also, an interesting thing that he brought out, and he brought out a few good points, a few very strong points in cross-examination that he brought out. So one of the things that he brought out was, what prompted you to even think about this case? And essentially what he answered was, well, people started posting things about him online, and that's what prompted him to start thinking about this case. And to which Alan Jackson said, oh, you mean it wasn't the fact that a police officer was found dead on your relative's front lawn? That didn't prompt you to think about it? It was only when people started posting things about you online? Like, it shows that he's so petty that all he cares and thinks about is himself. So I think that was a great point that the defense attorney Alan Jackson brought out. He also claims that he didn't watch any coverage of this case at all. And another thing that he brought out was, when was the last time you spoke to your very, very good friend and cousin, Allie McCabe? When was the last time? Do you even remember the last time you spoke to him? And he said that he doesn't remember. He doesn't even remember the last time that he spoke to Allie McCabe, one of his best friends. He also doesn't remember anything that went on, essentially, with that meeting with the prosecution, with the prosecutor, Mr. Lally. He doesn't remember. Doesn't remember what type of questions he said he might be asked. He doesn't remember anything. He's got a sudden case of amnesia. He also brought out the fact that the proctors are friends, are close friends with the Alberts. Remember, Michael Proctor was the trooper investigating this case, and you have the Alberts and the Proctors, who are close friends. He was the ring bearer at Courtney Proctor's wedding, and he sat at the head table. So showing that there is a very close family connection there. He's got a picture of them at the wedding together. Okay. Then he was never interviewed. Colin Albert was never interviewed by the Canton police. And the first time that he was interviewed by the state police was July 18th, 2023, a long time after the murder. And he said that the interview was conducted by Michael Proctor and his partner, but he said it lasted about only 10 minutes. That was the extent of the interview, and it seemed to be a very friendly interview, not like a room where the lights are on and you're getting scared. No, it was a very warm and friendly interview. Now, what's interesting is that he brought out is that picture that he took, that screenshot of the text messages between Allie McCabe and Colin Albert, shows that they had some discussion, some text messages exchanged that night. Was it January 28th, 29th? And then the next text message is February 20th. So he asked them, the next time that you speak to your good friend, that you text her, is February 20th. And he also brought out that they do like to communicate that way in texting and not always calling each other. And that is very common, for your good friends to always be texting them. And the next text was not till February 20th. Something seems off. Did you delete any text messages? And that was the suggestion here. But he said no, because they also communicate on other platforms like Snapchat. So that's essentially what he tried to, how to get out of that one. That no, they really communicated on other platforms like Snapchat. And then he said, well, did you switch to Snapchat because the messages are deleted automatically on Snapchat? And he said, well, if you set the settings to that, they are deleted automatically. But if you don't, then they aren't deleted automatically. But nevertheless, there was no extraction on his Snapchat, so we don't even know anything about that. And certainly not any screenshots that he took of that. So really, he doesn't remember anything about this case. He only remembers the very, very, very specific details. What he remembers about this case being picked up by Allie McCabe, some text messages, and essentially nothing else he remembers. And that came out very strongly on cross-examination, and he looked like a liar. And that's just how he looked. That's how he came across. I don't remember. And then he asked him, were you told that if you're just getting nervous, just say you don't remember? Like, is that the answer here? But Alan Jackson certainly did his job on Colin Albert to show that he's not being forthcoming. Now, he also showed him this picture of on February 26th with his knuckles cut up. So it looked like his knuckles had open wounds on them. This is February 26th, so it's a little while after January 28th, 29th. His explanation to that was because he also said that he's not a violent person. He never got into any fights. So why are his knuckles the only thing with open wounds on his body? He said he slipped on ice and he fell on his knuckles. But he's never been in a fight before. And then they showed some videos of him making a video of himself, of Colin Albert, showing a video that he was sending, I guess, to the Advantage Boys, which is another club hockey team, saying things like, I will F you up and I will beat your ASS. So certainly very strong language saying, like, I'm ready to fight you guys. So it really looks like a scary video. And there was some back and forth about whether at one point he testified that video was made in his junior or senior year, which is closer to the time of the murder of John O'Keefe, or if it was made in his sophomore year. So there was some back and forth about that. To Colin Albert's credit here, he did acknowledge some of the things that Alan Jackson was saying. He didn't fight him on certain things like, oh, those were threats, right? You were threatening to beat them up, right? And he acknowledged that, which is what he's supposed to do. If his lawyer was preparing him, his lawyer should say, don't fight everything. You don't fight the obvious things. Yes, when you say I'm going to kick your ASS, then obviously what you're saying is I'm going to beat you up. So you don't have to fight it. And that way you win some credibility with the jury. Although, like I said, in Colin Albert specifically, Alan Jackson did a great job showing how he just doesn't remember anything else about this case. All right, and then on July 27th, he said in 2023, okay, this is a long time later, at the hearing, he was even asked by a different lawyer, why his knuckles were bruised. So here we go again with his knuckles being bruised. Is this a person who is very violent? And his explanation was that he was just, his knuckles got those bruises from hitting a boxing bag. So that was his explanation there. Now, on redirect, he did a good job, Mr. Lally, showing that these pictures of his knuckles being busted up on February 26th, that was after the picture on February 11th, which the prosecutor showed. And his knuckles don't seem to be cut up there. And February 11th is certainly closer to January 20th, 29th here. And he said that this was just to explain the videos away, that this is just a club hockey team. They would send videos back and forth. This is like a teenage thing. Our team is better than your team. And of course, there are teams that take it too far and they end up in the parking lot fighting. But this could be understood that, high schoolers acting all tough with each other and really no one has the guts to do anything. So that's essentially how he explained away these videos, that, none of this was serious. They never had any fights with this club hockey team. Also, another point that the prosecutor brought out is that there was never any conflicts that he had, Colin Albert had, with John O'Keefe. So that was Colin Albert's testimony. Then we had Matt McCabe on the stand. Matt McCabe testified to really everything that we've heard mostly about already. He was at the waterfall. And something that he brought out also was that his wife, Jennifer, has MS, just like Karen Reed. And that was part of the reason why they thought they could be friends, and maybe that's why they were friends. But he brought that part out, probably gets some sympathy points there. And of course, I mean, it is a terrible disease, and I'm sure everyone's sad for her. So, but it did come out. Now, also, something that he testified to, which, again, this is a very questionable exactly what happened at the waterfall, is that how is that invitation given to all the people there to come over to Brian and Nicole Albert's house after they were leaving the waterfall? So remember, we had Nicole Albert's testimony, which she testified that she just told Jennifer McCabe to come to the house, never anybody else. But of course, if anybody wanted to come, they're welcome to come. So according to Nicole, the invitation seemed to be limited to Jennifer McCabe. Now, Matt McCabe, when he was testifying, he said that Brian and Nicole said to the entire table that everyone was welcome to come back to their house to celebrate Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday and to have some drinks. So a little bit of a inconsistency with exactly how that invitation got out there. Now, also, this pizza store, going to the pizza store. Should they go to this pizza store that Chris Albert owns after the waterfall or not? And there was one piece of testimony, I think, that said that somebody testified that it wasn't clear who suggested it, but they were talking about it. And somebody else testified, and I forgot who specifically right now, but somebody else testified that actually Karen was the one who kept asking to go to the pizza store. She really wanted to go to that pizza store and have pizza. And that's what Matt McCabe also testified to, that Karen just kept asking. She was really insistent. She really wanted pizza that night at 12 a.m. She was really hungry, I guess. And she kept asking to get pizza. And Chris and Matt were adamant that they're not going back to the pizza store. Why not? And Matt McCabe answered, because they're on this diet, right? That's why he wasn't even drinking beer. That was his testimony. He wasn't drinking beer because he's on this diet. So Matt McCabe says he's on this diet. He doesn't want to go and eat pizza now. And also Chris Albert didn't want to go and make and eat pizza either. And when do they actually go to the pizza store? So remember, there was some conflicting testimony about that. There was some testimony that there was a ritual. This was, I think, Chris Albert's testimony, that there's a ritual that when somebody turns 21, they all get together at the pizza store. But from the other testimony, it seems that, no, this is just something that they would do occasionally, is just get together, especially since Brian Albert Jr. was not even turning 21. He was turning 23, I think it was at the time. So that doesn't work out with the 21 ritual. But Matt McCabe testified that this was something that they would do. They would occasionally go to the pizza store and make pizza, but they didn't want to go because they're on this diet, this competition diet. And like I pointed out in some of the other videos when Chris Albert was on the stand, Chris Albert works in a pizza store. So You're on a diet all day. You're at the pizza store. You're able to control yourself. All of a sudden, you can't control yourself at 12 a.m.? You can't be around pizza now? So whether you're on the diet or not, that's just, okay, so you're going to have some self-control. That doesn't mean everybody else should lose out. But regardless, they didn't want to go to the pizza store. So they decided they're going to go to the Brian and Nicole Alberts' house. John O'Keefe called his wife, called Jennifer, and asked for the address. A few minutes later, they called again. They're having trouble getting there. They're getting a little lost. They needed some more clear directions. Again, why didn't they just put in the address into their phone and Waze it or Google Maps it or whatever navigation device that you want? I don't know. But they were on the phone a few times figuring out directions how to get to the house. By the time he got to the house, Colin Albert was not there. And this is consistent with all the testimony so far that Colin Albert was only there for a little bit before he left. Another thing he testified to was that when he was there hanging out with everybody, he did not see Brian Higgins and Brian Albert ever leave or go upstairs or go privately anywhere, that he did not notice that. Now, when Julie Nagel left the house, right? So Julie Nagel texted her brother, this is what we heard from earlier, to come pick her up. And she went outside when he came, her brother and her brother's friend and her brother's ex-girlfriend. She came out to the car to talk with them, and then she eventually decided she's going to stay and get a ride home with Matt and Jennifer McCabe. So during that time, Matt McCabe testifies that he did look out the window a few times. And he noticed the SUV parked in front, this black SUV, which we all know now is Karen Reed's Lexus SUV. So he did see this SUV there. And what it was a little unclear, and I listened to this a few times because I really wanted to hear it, but I think that the prosecutor could have been a little more clear about the questions. And what it seemed to me was that there was a Jeep behind the SUV. And behind the Jeep, there must be this F-150, which Julie Nagel's brother was in to pick her up. So that's what the testimony seemed to be. They kept saying other car, and I don't know which car they're talking about. They're talking about the Jeep, but at one point he did mention a Jeep, and we know that there was an F-150 there. Was there confusion there? I think it was unclear with the testimony today when he was talking about the Jeep, when he was talking about the F-150, but it seemed to be that there was some Jeep there. Where the Jeep was parked, it was unclear to me, but at some point it seemed that there was a Jeep, an F-150, and Karen Reed's SUV. So if you've noticed that, if you can figure that out, let me know in the comments. And he did testify that the SUV moved up twice. So it did move up twice, and he observed what he called abnormal tire tracks. Seems like there were some tire tracks over the curb and then forward. And this he noticed this all from the window in his house. So from not his house, but in the window of Brian and Nicole Albert's house. So Matt McCabe was either looking out the door or the window. And it's not exactly right next to the street. There's a nice big front lawn there. And also the testimony was that there's no lights by the street. So this is Matt McCabe. This is his testimony. Looking out from the house. And again, I don't know how many feet there are from the curb to the house. I think that would be interesting to know. But he testified that even though there's no lights, there's no street lights on that street. That's what I'm under the impression of. That's what I think the testimony was. He was able to see tire marks from where he was standing all the way out to the street. Not only regular tire marks, but they were abnormal tire marks. So not only did he see some tire marks, there was something strange about the tire marks. That's some pretty good vision. All right? So that just struck me. And then, with this amazing vision that Matt McCabe had, when he was leaving that night, and he pulled out of the driveway, he didn't notice John O'Keefe's body. Which again, I think that everybody leaving that house, pulling their lights, when they're backing up, their lights are right over the lawn, and then pulling down the street, even if you're looking straight ahead, we have peripheral vision. It's a big man, 6'2", on the lawn. It's not in the middle of the lawn. It's closer to, it's somewhat 10, 12 feet from the curb. And this is someone who has such amazing vision that he's able to see from the window all the way to the street and see abnormal tire tracks. you would think that someone with that great vision would also notice a 6'2" man on the grass. So we will see if this is something that Alan Jackson or Yannetti will make a big deal about during cross-examination. I don't know. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait for tomorrow to see whether how the cross-examination is going to come out. But that is the testimony that came out today in day 13. That will be it for today. Please, if you haven't liked, subscribe, and we will see you next time.